Now this kit or even version control system, you can categorize version control system in two categories. Okay, one is centralized version control system, another is distributed. How actually this centralized version control system works and why there was a necessity to come up with something else. If the current solution is satisfying resolving the problem statement, then we do not need anything new. Always have this curiosity back of your mind that if something new is coming, then there must be some problem or there must be some improvement area in the current offerings or in the current situation, correct? That's why something new is coming. So how this centralized version control system works? So as you in your organization, you have one single server. When I'm saying server, it can be, you can just interpret that a one single machine, okay, where all of your piece of code is kept. Whoever wants to access this piece of code, those might be your developers or any employee, right, who wants to access your version control system. And how they are accessing, they are going and they are connecting to this machine every day through probably SSHFS, right, SSH file system, okay, and they are working or they are modifying their piece of code here on this server itself. Do you know, let's say for example, common drive or network drive in your office? So you can say similar kind of common or network drive which you can access through SSH. So instead of accessing through UI, if you access such kind of common space through SSH, that's what we say SSH file system, SSHFS. Okay, so all these developers, how they are accessing that piece of code on your common server through SSHFS, right? What does it mean? This piece of code, is it lying on their machines? No, it's lying here and everyone is connecting here and modifying the piece of code here only. Your code, where it is kept on one single server, centralized server, correct? If anyone has to work, they have to work here only, correct? That's why we call this kind of stuff as a centralized version control system. What are the benefits of this? So first, as it is centralized version control system, if you don't give access to anyone, can anyone access to this piece of code? No. So security is at most, correct? You can completely control who can do what. That was the benefit. What are the probably disadvantage of using centralized version control system? Then think about this. As it is centralized, if this server goes down, then and at the same time you will lose everything. So you will have to have your own set of backup mechanism, which will cost you extra. Now, second, the network connectivity has been broken now. Your complete team will be idle because they cannot access. You will have to establish some sort of mechanism in your organization that if any issue arises with this centralized version control system, then it should be treated as priority one issue and has to be resolved as quickly as possible. CVS or SVN, those are examples of centralized version control system. To overcome all these disadvantages, people came up with another solution, and that was distributed version control system. Practically speaking, before we even talk about distributed version control system, do you think people might have been using centralized version control system? What was the most benefit of centralized version control system? Security, correct? So there are still some certain organizations which are using centralized version control system. Yes, at the same time, it is not that common, but yes, in some certain capacity, people are still using. Let's say any organization which is doing defense, correct? Or sensitive departments, probably government agencies for them. Do you think those guys can afford any kind of security breach? Not at all. They are okay if people are idle for a day or two. It's okay for them. But security is at most priority for those people, correct? Take an example of any nationalized bank for that particular country. Can they afford any kind of security vulnerability? Not at all. So what these people do then? Yes, security is definitely important, but not at the same level which is for defense or government agencies or for sensitive areas, right? For them, it's not that equally like an important. So those people can definitely go and opt for distributed version control system, which is the majority of the case.